This is part 5 of 7, diving into having a 4K display on a phone. If you'd like to see the full episode, it's available right here, right now. Otherwise, let's jump into it.
Conversely, the biggest drawback of higher resolution displays, which pretty much everyone brings up when they're discouraging it, is that you're having to manage a larger number of pixels, and so therefore that is more of a resource strain on the device. So let's get into that now. I haven't done any explicit measurements on this, but here are a couple of observations. In the time since the XZ Premium came out with its 4K display, SoCs have become faster and more power efficient, batteries have got bigger, and screens have got bigger. Anecdotally, it's got a 5-year-old LiPo battery in it that's a fair bit smaller than the batteries that we get in modern phones now. And just to hit that point home, this is a LiPo battery that has aged by 5 years, and yet it is still an all-day phone, despite doing a fair bit of YouTube each day. Coming at this from another angle, I'm not a gamer, and gaming has very different requirements to my use cases. And there are many other use cases that people have. So, for all these different use cases, the priorities are probably different. This project has had a lot of tangents, and so has this video. So, let's have a moment of cuckoos to celebrate the tangents. Okay, that's enough. So over the course of this video, we've talked a lot about techniques which are used to trick the brain into perceiving more detail with fewer subpixels. Those tricks require strong signals, i.e. strong contrast. So when I said, 1. Looking at fine details on pictures and videos is exactly the wrong way to test whether or not you can perceive that 4K resolution. This is why. We need high contrast to make use of the resolution, i.e. not photos and video. If you have a look at photos and video, let's take a look at this example of one of my previous videos on YouTube at 4K. My glasses look pretty sharp. So let's go and zoom into those. And you'll notice there is not a single pair of pixels that have a sharp contrast in there. Despite the picture looking crisp, it is not a sharp picture. That is the nature of compression on the media that we consume on our phones. It is technically possible to get something that is higher quality. That is not the norm, and so that is not how we should be testing it. So to be a little bit more explicit about that, it is very hard to get photos and video that do not have compression artifacts in them. And when you're using a material, that doesn't matter. If you want to perceive that 4K resolution, that compression is not working in your favour. When I mentioned, and likewise too, the default configuration on Sony's old phones for when to use 4K versus when to use 1080p is the optimal worst way to use that technology. Those phones defaulted to 4K on YouTube, the album, and a few other Sony-specific applications, and everything else was 1080p. As I just showed, that's the exact opposite of what you want if you want to experience the clarity of a 4K display. Photos and videos are just not going to cut it. Text and algorithmic animations, such as live wallpapers, are much more likely to give you a good result.
In part 5 of 7, discussing use cases, we've talked about the increased resource usage and therefore the increased battery usage of using a higher resolution. In theory, it's a problem. In reality, it's not for me. It might be for you. We have different use cases, and that's okay. This is a huge market, and there's plenty of room for different use cases to be met. If you'd like to see the full episode in its entirety, it's available right now there. And if you'd like to see the playlist of what's available so far, that's here, and like and subscribe.